Steve Harvey had heard married couples blame each other for snoring, overspending, bad cooking, and forgotten anniversaries. Most of the time, the arguments ended with laughter. But when Richard Cole gave one confident answer about his wife, the woman beside him stopped smiling. Steve looked at her face, lowered his card, and asked whether she wanted to respond. Monica Cole took a slow breath and said 12 words that exposed the truth behind 22 years of marriage. He says he provided for us. I paid the mortgage for 16 years. Richard opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Their 2 grown children stared at him. The audience fell silent, and before the game could continue, Steve asked the question Richard had spent half his life avoiding. Why did your wife have to disappear inside this marriage so you could feel like the man? Monica Cole was 48 years old and worked as a night shift respiratory therapist at a hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was the person families met during the worst hours of their lives, when a loved one could not breathe and every machine seemed frightening. Monica did not speak loudly. She explained each tube, answered each question, and stayed a few minutes after her shift whenever someone was scared. Her co-workers called her steady. Her children called her dependable. Richard called her the quiet one. That description had once sounded affectionate. Over the years, it became a place where the family stored everything they did not want to notice. Richard was 51 and owned Cole Custom Kitchens, a small cabinet and renovation company. He was charming, energetic, and comfortable in any room. He could turn a stranger into a customer before finishing a cup of coffee. He remembered names, told good stories, and spoke proudly about building a business without help. Nobody handed me anything, he often said. The sentence appeared in his advertisements, his speeches at church, and nearly every conversation about success. Richard believed it. Everyone around him had heard it so many times that they believed it too. Monica and Richard met at a community college fundraiser when she was 24. Richard was studying construction management and working with his uncle. Monica was completing clinical training. He made her laugh by pretending to bid on a terrible painting, just to keep another man from buying it. She liked his confidence. He liked that she listened without competing for attention. They married 18 months later. Their daughter Alana was born the following year. Their son Miles arrived 3 years after that. Richard started his cabinet business from a rented garage. Monica worked at the hospital and handled the bookkeeping at night. During those early years, they were a team. Richard built cabinets. Monica created invoices. Richard met clients. Monica tracked payments. When he damaged his truck, she used her savings for repairs. When Monica studied for a specialist certification, Richard kept the children quiet and brought her coffee. They did not have much money, but they had the feeling that every sacrifice belonged to both of them. That changed after Richard's business began to grow. A local builder gave him a major contract. Then a home design magazine featured one of his kitchens. Richard hired employees, moved into a proper workshop, and began earning more than Monica. People praised him as a self-made businessman. Monica was proud. She stopped correcting small details when he told the story. He said he had built the first workshop with money from his construction jobs. In fact, half the deposit came from Monica's retirement account. He said he had managed the books alone until he hired an accountant. In fact, Monica handled them for 6 years without pay. He said his income allowed Monica to work fewer hours when the children were young. In fact, Monica worked weekends and nights so she could be home during the day. At first, the omissions felt harmless. Richard was the public face of the business. Monica did not want applause. She wanted stability. Then the housing market collapsed. 3 large customers failed to pay. Richard had ordered materials on credit. Within 6 months, the company was nearly $300,000 in debt. He laid off most of his employees and stopped taking a salary. Monica increased her hospital schedule from 3 nights a week to 5. Richard asked her not to tell their families. People trust a businessman who looks successful, he said. If they think we are struggling, nobody will hire me. Monica agreed to protect the business while he recovered. She did not understand that the temporary performance would last 16 years. To keep the family home, Monica paid the mortgage from her hospital income. She covered health insurance, groceries, school fees, and utilities. Richard reinvested every dollar he earned into the company. Some years, that decision made sense. Other years, he could have contributed, but chose expansion instead. When Alana needed braces, Monica worked extra shifts. When Miles joined a traveling basketball team, she sold jewelry her grandmother had left her. When Richard bought a newer truck to impress clients, he called it a business necessity. Monica drove the same 12-year-old sedan with a broken air conditioner. She told herself they were still a team. Richard's success would eventually benefit everyone. The company recovered. It did more than recover. Cole Custom Kitchens became one of the most respected small renovation companies in the county. Richard hired 22 people. He bought a second workshop. Local magazines described him as a man who had risked everything for his dream. At church, Richard was invited to speak about providing for a family through hard work. Monica sat in the second row and applauded. Afterward, a woman told her, "You are blessed to have a husband who takes care of everything." Monica smiled and said, "Yes, I am blessed." That night, she drove to the hospital for a 12-hour shift. The deepest injury was not the money. Monica would have worked every hour again if the family truly needed it. The injury was that Richard slowly transformed her sacrifice into evidence of his success. At home, he made the final decisions because he earned business money. He chose when they renovated the kitchen, what car they bought for Alana, and how much they donated to church. If Monica questioned an expense, Richard reminded her that running a company required courage. "You worry about everything," he would say. "That is why I handle the big picture." Monica handled the mortgage, insurance, groceries, tuition, taxes, and emergency savings. Richard handled the big picture. Their children absorbed the story without realizing it. Alana once wrote a college essay about her father sacrificing everything to give the family a better life. Monica helped edit the grammar. Miles told friends his mother worked because she liked staying busy. Monica never corrected them. Her own mother, Dorothy, did notice. Dorothy had cleaned hotel rooms for 35 years and understood invisible labor. "A sacrifice kept secret too long turns into permission," she told Monica. Monica defended Richard. "He loves us. He is not a bad man." "I did not call him bad," Dorothy replied. "I said he has become comfortable with your silence." Monica promised she would talk to him. She tried several times. Richard always had an explanation. The business needed one more year. A new showroom would increase revenue. A competitor was expanding. The company carried the family name and would become the children's inheritance. When Monica asked him to acknowledge what she had contributed, he kissed her forehead and said, "Baby, I could not have done it without you." The words sounded grateful, but nothing changed. He still told the public version as if her labor were a small supportive detail. Then Dorothy became ill. She needed home care after a stroke. Monica reduced her hospital schedule temporarily and asked Richard to cover the mortgage for 6 months. The business was profitable. The request should have been simple. Richard hesitated. He had committed most of the company's available cash to a luxury showroom. Covering the mortgage would require delaying the opening or taking money from his personal investment account. "Can your brothers help with your mother?" he asked. Monica stared at him. Her brothers were already paying for medication and physical therapy. "I am asking my husband to pay our house payment," she said. Richard became defensive. "I have paid for this family in ways you do not count." That sentence changed something inside Monica. For 22 years, she had protected Richard's dignity. When her own mother needed care, he treated the mortgage as Monica's private obligation. She did not argue. She returned to full-time night shifts and cared for Dorothy during the day. For 4 months, Monica slept in short pieces, 2 hours in the afternoon, an hour in a hospital break room, 20 minutes in her car before driving home. Dorothy died the following spring. At the funeral, Richard delivered a beautiful speech about how Dorothy had taught the family the value of hard work. Monica stood beside him, too exhausted to cry. After the service, she found an envelope Dorothy had left in her Bible. Inside was a note. "You have spent years proving you can carry everything. That does not mean everyone is entitled to keep handing you weight." Monica placed the note in her purse. 2 months later, Alana submitted the family Feud application. She believed the family needed something joyful after Dorothy's death. Her audition video showed Richard cooking, Miles teasing his sister, and Monica laughing in a way she had not laughed for months. The producers invited them to Los Angeles. The team included Richard, Monica, Alana, Miles, and Richard's younger brother, Curtis. Monica almost refused. She was still grieving and resented the idea of performing as the happy wife beside Richard. But Alana had planned the trip with genuine love. "Grandma would have wanted us to go," she said. Monica agreed. Before the taping, Richard treated the trip as another victory story. He told producers that his business had supported the family for over 20 years. Monica heard him from across the waiting room. She touched Dorothy's note inside her purse, but said nothing. The opposing family was the Parkers from Tennessee, 5 cousins with enormous energy. The studio audience warmed immediately to both teams. Steve Harvey introduced the Coles. Richard described himself as a self-made business owner. Steve asked Monica what it was like being married to an entrepreneur. "It teaches you patience," she said. The audience laughed. Steve looked at her for an extra second, as though he heard something underneath the joke. Alana introduced herself as a marketing director. Miles was an assistant basketball coach. Curtis drove a delivery truck and announced that he had spent his entire life watching Richard take credit for things. Richard laughed louder than anyone. The first question asked contestants to name something married couples argue about before leaving the house. The Coles won with being late. Monica answered money, which also appeared on the board. Richard teased her for giving such a serious answer. "This woman can turn breakfast into a budget meeting," he told Steve. Steve raised an eyebrow. "Usually the person talking about the budget has seen something the rest of y'all ain't seen." Monica smiled politely. The game remained playful. Richard gave a ridiculous answer about hiding snacks in the garage. Miles accidentally admitted that he ignored family group messages. Alana revealed that Monica kept emergency cash inside an old cookbook. Then came the double points round. Steve read the question. "We asked 100 married women. Name something your husband thinks he provides better than he actually does." The audience laughed before anyone answered. Richard faced the Parker family captain. The other contestant buzzed first and said romance. It was the number 2 answer. Richard said money. "Survey said," Steve announced. Money was the number 1 answer. Richard celebrated as if the answer proved something about him. The Coles chose to play. Alana answered help around the house. Miles said advice. Curtis said protection. All 3 appeared. The family needed one more answer to clear the board. Steve approached Monica. "Your husband gave us the number 1 answer," he said. "Name something a husband thinks he provides better than he actually does." Monica looked at the board, then at Richard. "Security," she said. The answer was there. The family cheered, but Monica did not. Steve noticed. "Miss Monica, you got it right, but your face says this survey just opened a meeting." Richard laughed. "She always worries about money, Steve. I keep telling her I have taken care of this family for 22 years. The cheering stopped. Monica looked at him. Steve shifted his attention from Richard to Monica. "Is that true?" Richard answered before she could. "Absolutely. My business built our life." Monica's hand moved to the purse tucked behind her podium. Dorothy's note was inside. For 16 years, Monica had protected the story Richard told about himself. She had protected it from their children, their church, their friends, and sometimes even from herself. Steve asked again, more gently. "Miss Monica, is that true?" Monica took a slow breath. "He says he provided for us," she said. "I paid the mortgage for 16 years. Richard's smile disappeared. Alana turned toward her mother. "What?" Monica continued, not loudly but clearly. "I paid the house, health insurance, groceries, school fees, and most of your college expenses. Your father's money stayed in the company." Miles looked at Richard. "Dad said the business paid for everything." Richard tried to answer. "The business was building equity for the family." Monica nodded. "Some years, yes, but even after it became profitable, I kept carrying the household because every new expansion mattered more." Richard's face reddened. "Why are you doing this here?" Monica did not look away. "Because every time I tried at home, you thanked me without hearing me." The studio became completely silent. Steve lowered his question card. "We need to stop the game for a minute." Richard glanced toward the cameras. He looked angry, but beneath the anger was fear. The story that supported his identity had broken in front of his children. "This is private," he said. "It was private when I worked nights," Monica replied. "It became public every time you told people you did it alone." Alana began crying. "Mom, why didn't you tell us?" Monica's voice softened. "Because I did not want you to think less of your father." He worked hard. The business did struggle. I chose to help. But somewhere along the way, helping became disappearing. Miles looked at Richard. Did you know she felt this way? Richard answered too quickly. Your mother never complained about working. Steve stepped forward. That wasn't the question, he said. Your son asked if you knew she felt invisible. Richard opened his mouth but could not respond. Monica reached into her purse and removed Dorothy's note. Her hand trembled. My mother saw it, she said. Before she died, she wrote that being strong did not mean everyone could keep handing me weight. Richard stared at the folded paper. I asked you to pay the mortgage when she got sick, Monica continued. You asked whether my brothers could help instead. I worked nights and cared for her during the day because the showroom could not wait. The shock on Alana's face turned to anger. Dad, you opened that showroom while Grandma was dying? Richard looked down. The contracts were signed, he said quietly. Contracts can be changed, Monica replied. You just did not believe my exhaustion was an emergency. Steve asked the cameras to stop. The producers lowered the lights. He made it clear that neither family had to continue filming. Then he pulled a chair beside Monica and another beside Richard. I'm going to say something, and you may not like it, he told Richard. Providing is not just bringing home the biggest check. Providing is noticing who is paying the price for your dream. Richard remained silent. Steve continued. You may be a hard-working man. You may love your wife. But if the whole world knows your sacrifice, and nobody knows hers, that did not happen by accident. Richard finally spoke. I never told her she did not matter. Monica answered, you did not have to. You built a version of our marriage where everything I carried became proof that you were successful. Curtis stepped away from his podium. He looked uncomfortable. She is telling the truth, he said. Richard turned sharply. Curtis, stay out of this. I stayed out of it for years, Curtis replied. I worked for you when the company nearly closed. Monica's checks bought materials twice. She paid our crew one Christmas. You told everybody you took out a loan. Monica looked at Curtis in surprise. She had not known he remembered. Richard's shoulders dropped. The moral lines in the room became clear. But Steve did not turn Richard into a cartoon villain. He asked him what the company meant to him. Richard looked at the floor. My father left us with nothing. I watched my mother beg the landlord for time. I promised I would never be the man who could not protect his family. And when the business almost failed, Steve asked, I felt like I was becoming him. Richard admitted that Monica's income had saved the company and the house. At first he planned to repay every sacrifice. Then success returned, and praise became addictive. Each time someone called him self-made, he felt farther from the frightened boy watching his mother beg. If I admitted Monica carried us, he said, I thought it meant I had failed. Monica shook her head. Needing your wife did not make you a failure. Erasing her is what damaged us. Richard began crying. For the first time, Alana and Miles saw their father without the business story around him. He was not only proud, he was ashamed and terrified of being powerless. That understanding explained his behavior. It did not excuse it. Steve turned to Monica. What do you want from him? The question surprised her. I don't want applause, she said. I want the truth in our house. I want access to every account. I want decisions to belong to both of us. I want him to understand that my work was not extra money, and I want one day of rest without feeling that the whole family will collapse. Do you want to stay married? Steve asked. Monica looked at Richard for a long time. I want to know whether there is a marriage to stay in once the story changes. Richard flinched, but Steve nodded. That's honest, he said. A marriage cannot heal around an answer nobody is allowed to give. The family moved backstage with a counselor. The audience waited. The Parker family, who had come to play a game, told producers they did not want the Coles pressured to return. For nearly an hour, Richard listened while Monica described 16 years of hidden labor. She described sleeping in the hospital parking lot, selling her grandmother's jewelry, and editing Alana's essay about Richard's sacrifice. She admitted her own responsibility for protecting the false story. Silence felt like loyalty, she said. Then it became resentment. Alana apologized for never asking how the bills were paid. Miles cried when he realized his basketball travel costs had come from jewelry Monica loved. Monica told both children they had been young and were not responsible. Richard did not ask for forgiveness. That was the first sign something had changed. He said, "I made your strength convenient for me." Monica nodded. The family chose not to finish the game that day. The producers arranged for the Parkers to return later and offered the Coles the same opportunity. Before leaving, Richard asked to speak on camera one final time. Monica agreed only after he showed her what he planned to say. They returned to the stage without game show music. Richard faced his children, the audience, and then Monica. "I have introduced myself as a self-made man for years," he said. "That was not true. My wife used her wages, retirement money, sleep, and health to hold our family together while I built a company. I accepted praise that belonged to both of us. Worse, I allowed her to carry responsibilities I could have shared because admitting I needed her hurt my pride." He paused. "Monica, I am sorry. Not because this came out on television. I am sorry because it had to come out this way before I listened." Monica did not hug him immediately. She said, "Thank you for telling the truth." That response was not dramatic, but it was honest. Steve closed the episode with a lesson. There are people watching who think providing means money, and people who think love means staying quiet, he said. Both ideas can destroy a home. Real partnership is not one person standing in the light while the other one holds up the building. If your success requires somebody you love to disappear, that ain't success. The weeks after taping were uncomfortable. Richard slept in the guest room at Monica's request. They began marriage counseling. Monica hired an independent accountant to review the household and business finances. For the first time, she had complete access to every account. The review showed that Richard had not stolen money or hidden an affair. The reality was less sensational and more revealing. He had consistently treated business growth as essential and Monica's labor as flexible. Year after year, he had chosen the company first, because he assumed she would absorb whatever remained. Richard canceled the planned third showroom. He moved a portion of the company's retained earnings into a joint retirement account equal to the money Monica had withdrawn years earlier, adjusted for growth. He also began paying the household a fixed monthly contribution from the business. Monica reduced her schedule to 3 nights a week. The first Saturday she had completely free, she did not know what to do. She woke at 6 out of habit, started laundry, and then stopped. Richard had already done it. "You do not get a medal," she told him. "I know," he said. "I'm trying to become normal." For the first time in months, Monica laughed. Richard also corrected the public story. At a Chamber of Commerce event, he introduced Monica as co-founder of Cole Custom Kitchens. He explained that her unpaid bookkeeping and financial support had kept the business alive. Monica had not asked for a title, but she accepted it on one condition: it came with legal ownership. Richard transferred 40% of the company to her. Another 20% was placed in a future trust for Alana and Miles. The decision did not erase the past. It changed the structure that had allowed the imbalance to continue. When the Family Feud episode aired, the answer spread across social media. Some viewers praised Monica. Others criticized her for exposing private problems on television. Monica responded only once. "I do not recommend waiting for a game show," she said. "I recommend speaking before silence becomes the only role people recognize you in." Thousands of women wrote about unpaid bookkeeping, night shifts, childcare, emotional labor, and sacrifices that disappeared inside a husband's success story. Men wrote too. Some admitted they had confused being respected with being unquestioned. The most shared moment was not Monica's original answer. It was Richard saying, "I made your strength convenient for me." Counselors used the line in workshops about invisible labor and financial partnership. 3 months after airing, a former employee visited the cabinet shop. He told Richard that his own wife had supported him through trade school while raising their children. "I never called it support," the man said. "I called it what wives do. Your show made me realize how ugly that sounded." He went home and put his wife's name on the deed to their house. Monica kept Dorothy's note framed on her desk. Beneath it, she added a second sentence in her own handwriting: "Strength should be respected, not exploited." 6 months after the original taping, the Coles returned to Family Feud. This time, Monica walked out first. Richard followed her. Steve asked whether they were still married. Monica smiled. "We are still married, but not in the same marriage." The audience applauded. She explained that she did not mean they had replaced their vows. She meant the old arrangement, Richard's dream at the center and Monica's labor around the edges was over. Richard said counseling had taught him that gratitude without change was often a way to end uncomfortable conversations. "I used to tell Monica I appreciated her," he said. "Then I kept benefiting from the same unfair system. Appreciation is not partnership if nothing moves." Alana shared that she had rewritten her college essay. The new version was called "The Woman Behind the Invoice." It described Monica working nights, managing the books, and protecting the family during the recession. Alana submitted it to a magazine, which published it on Mother's Day. Miles brought the one piece of jewelry Monica had not sold, Dorothy's small gold ring. He and Alana had found the jeweler who purchased the other pieces years earlier. The original jewelry was gone, but they commissioned a new necklace using the ring as its center. They gave it to Monica on stage. "This is not repayment," Miles said. "We know we cannot repay what we did not understand. It is a reminder that Grandma saw you, and now we do too." Monica cried. Richard did not step into the moment. He stood back and allowed his children to honor their mother. Steve noticed. "Richard," he said, "last time you would have found a way to give a speech right here." Richard laughed. "I'm learning that every microphone is not mine." The Coles played again. During Fast Money, Monica scored 164 points by herself. Richard needed only 36. Before his questions began, Steve asked whether Monica had prepared him. Richard answered, "She has been preparing me for 22 years. I finally started listening." They won the prize. The family used part of the money to create the Dorothy Coles Scholarship for hospital support workers returning to school. The first recipient was a nursing assistant who worked nights while raising 2 children. 1 year later, Monica left the night shift. She did not leave healthcare. She accepted a daytime training position, teaching younger respiratory therapists how to communicate with frightened families. The schedule allowed her to sleep at night for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Richard changed too, though not perfectly. He still became defensive when the business was questioned. He still enjoyed praise, but Monica no longer protected him from correction, and Richard no longer treated correction as betrayal. At their 25th anniversary dinner, Richard stood to make a toast. Friends expected a speech about endurance. Instead, he placed a folder in front of Monica. Inside was a complete history of the business. Every year listed major contracts, employees, and growth. It also listed Monica's contributions, the retirement withdrawal, unpaid bookkeeping hours, mortgage payments, crew payroll, health insurance, and the months she worked 5 nights a week. The final page read, "Cole Custom Kitchens was built by Richard and Monica Cole." Richard said, "This is the true story. I should have written it years ago." Monica read the page carefully. "It is accurate," she said. Everyone laughed, but Richard understood the deeper meaning. Monica no longer needed exaggerated praise. She needed facts, ownership, rest, and respect. Years later, when people asked Steve Harvey about the answer that exposed the Coles' marriage, he said the surprise was not that Monica had paid the mortgage. Many families survive because one spouse quietly carries more during difficult years. The problem, he explained, was that temporary sacrifice became a permanent identity. He got to be the provider. She got to be the person who provided without the name. The Coles' story became part of local marriage workshops. Monica and Richard occasionally spoke together, but Monica set clear rules. They did not present themselves as a perfect couple. They did not turn Richard's apology into proof that change was easy. They spoke about money, ownership, unpaid labor, and the danger of confusing silence with peace. Richard always began by saying, "I loved my wife while benefiting from something that hurt her. Love did not make me innocent. It made me responsible for changing." Monica followed with, "Speaking late was better than never speaking. But speaking early would have cost us less." 5 years after the show, Cole Custom Kitchens remained successful. The company adopted paid family leave, transparent salary bands, and retirement contributions for every full-time employee. Monica insisted that the company reflect the lesson their family had learned. People should not have to disappear for someone else's success. At home, the changes were quieter. Richard paid the mortgage from the joint account. Monica took Sunday afternoons for herself. Alana asked her mother about work instead of assuming everything was fine. Miles called before making financial decisions. The family told the full story of the business. including the recession and Monica's role. Dorothy's note remained framed in the hallway. One evening, Monica found Richard standing in front of it. "Your mother knew exactly what I was doing," he said. "She knew what I was allowing too," Monica replied. Richard looked at her. "Do you regret staying?" Monica considered the question. "I regret disappearing," she said. "Staying became my choice again after you learned to see me." That answer mattered more than forgiveness. Monica had not remained because endurance was automatically virtuous. She remained because the marriage changed enough to contain her whole voice. The family feud question had seemed harmless. Name something a husband thinks he provides better than he actually does. Richard answered money and celebrated. Monica answered security, then exposed the truth. For 16 years, she had paid for the family's security while Richard received the identity of provider. Her answer exposed their whole marriage because it revealed more than a bank statement. It revealed who was allowed to be visible, whose dream counted as urgent, whose exhaustion could wait, and whose version of the past became family history. Richard could not respond because the facts left him nowhere to hide. But silence was not the end of his story. It was the first moment he stopped defending himself long enough to hear his wife. The applause faded. The episode stopped trending. Dorothy's note remained. So did the mortgage, the business, the children, and the daily choices that make a marriage either fair or quietly unbearable. Monica's legacy was not that she carried everything. It was that she finally set the weight down where everyone could see it. And Richard's redemption was not one public apology. It was what he did after the answer, shared ownership, changed decisions, corrected history, and learned that being a husband did not mean standing above the person who helped him build. It meant standing beside her, telling the truth about who carried what, and never again mistaking her silence for proof that everything was fine.